Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome back to this week's episode of Podiatry Marketing Podcast. With me, as usual, is Big Jim Mack. How you doing today, Jim?
Doing fantastic, Tyson. Excited to chat with you today, as always.
I had someone I was talking to 2 weeks ago, and they said to me, "So when's the Big Jim Mack and Tyson shirts come out?" So we have to work on that.
Well, I've had multiple people, a couple conferences this past fall where they being called Big Jim or Big Jim Mac at conferences is definitely something I've heard on this podcast, but over 150 times. But to hear it in the real world was definitely something different. So,
Yeah, I picture it as the T-shirt, and I picture it as like more of a caricature of you and I
sure.
together as Big Jim Mack and Tyson.
Well, maybe someday we can make that happen.
Yeah, I think it'd be funny. I just gotta probably go to AI. You can just say, "Hey, can you do this?" And you tell them what it's all about, and just put a photo of you and I up there. And yeah, so
Now,
it's worth doing.
I should try that out on ChatGPT and their kind of photo editor, their photo generator once we get off the show today.
Yeah, I went into their photo generator once before, and I said, I want an image of a person standing up in front of a crowd, a room full of men and women, and then I said, "Oh, and the person has a bald head."
Okay,
So it was supposed to pick me up there talking.
sure.
All of a sudden, everybody in the room was bald. Like it was a bald convention. Even the women were bald. And I just went, "My God, that looks horrible." I
Yeah,
look pretty good at the front though.
there you go.
Yeah, that made me look tough. Must have thought, "Oh, if you're bald, everyone's tough and bald."
Yeah, I haven't tried it in a little while, but it was still giving every podiatrist a stethoscope the last time I tried to make some podiatry specific images. So not sure if it's still giving podiatrists stethoscopes, but even if I tell it not to give a podiatrist a stethoscope, it still kept on doing it. So hopefully
Yeah.
they've got that all figured out for us.
Yeah. And you tell it, "Oh, we only have 5 toes." You always end up with 6.
They were kind of freaky there for a little while.
So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're going to jump into a question I get asked a lot. When people are just getting into developing, after they developed a website for their practice and they've got their Google business profile all tuned up, a lot of the questions I ask kind of revolve around what's the most effective form of advertising for podiatrists. So, what type of online ads are really the type type? And, for a long time, there's definitely the area where I start off with most people is that the Google search ads, and there's kind of like 5 main reasons why I say that that's kind of like it's almost different than any other form of advertising because it is there's just some specific differences we'll get into here that make it a lot different than kind of more interruptive, generic advertising when kind of the normal kind of traditional media type of advertising we think about when we think about advertising or ads we see as consumers ourselves or ads we see with other types of either dental practices or medical practices kind of in magazines or newspapers. Not to say that those things can't work,
Yeah.
but there is some benefit of utilizing these Google search ads that kind of go above and beyond. And we'll kind of jump into some of those details in a little bit here.
Yeah, well, let's just dive straight into it. What are the 5 reasons?
I'd say the first reason is that you're going to get that immediate visibility on the first page of search results, right? So when people are searching for podiatrist near me or podiatrist in the name of the location you're in, let's say you're in Sydney, Australia, when people are searching for those things, that ad is going to show up above the organic search results. It's going to be even above the maps. So it can sometimes be the first result in the map along with the top of the page. So it's really invaluable real estate on a web page to be in Google's results. And when you do Google search ads, that's kind of the immediate way to get traction. If you're competing for, terms against other clinics in your local area, it's something that, helps you rank higher in the search engines for sure.
Is it normally 3? Is it 3 they still put at the front? The
Yeah,
top?
generally it's 2 or 3. It's kind of Google's always kind of changing it, but currently it's 3. It's like I said, it's the first thing that people see. And I would say that Google can be a little bit tricky, right? It used to be very obvious, and it used to be almost like a different color as far as almost like a badge that it said
Mm.
ad, and it was very visually striking. But now Google, it doesn't show up as clearly that it's an ad. So some people are more likely to probably click on it. But Google Ads, like you talked about being kind of top of the search results is really important for newer and smaller clinics, right? It's going to take some time to develop kind of what they call basically kind of your Google rank or your kind of your ability, kind of your kind of ranking score with Google is going to kind of grow over time as you're spending more money on ads. But it's something that there's been some show as well that if you have ads, your organic results generally benefit as well. That there's kind of a buoying effect of your organic results just kind of start raising to the top along with your ads. So in order to kind of level that playing field and be seen above more established competitors, that's one of the benefits of these Google search ads.
Would that be because Google goes, "Oh, well, you're spending money with us, and you've
Um,
got your own page here. We're gonna look after our own."
but I think it also has to deal with the fact that, we all have Google Analytics installed on our website. So even if someone comes through with you on an ad, if someone's spending a good amount of time on your website, even through an ad, it's a sign that you have a well-built website that relates to the people that are searching for those things. So if they search for it and click on it and they stay for it a while through an ad, I have to think that there's some kind of internal mechanism that says, well, if they like it through an ad, they're probably going to like it in organic. And we know that there's, if we measure your website versus these others, maybe it's people are spending a minute more, a minute and a half more. So why wouldn't they bolster the organic aspect, the ranking of your website as well?
It makes sense. So what's next? What's the second reason?
The second thing is I would say is that, and it's getting a little bit more difficult as time goes on, but you can measure results and get some data insights by utilizing Google search ads. Sometimes that can be helpful as far as how you build the web pages on your website itself. Meaning that Google offers these kind of in-depth reporting and kind of tracks kind of key performance metrics, things like your keywords, the search terms people are clicking on. This allows you to kind of optimize your ad campaigns in real time to make sure you're kind of getting the most out of your marketing spend. And if you see that, it's gonna when you have Google Ads, there's these reports you can look at, and like I said, these kind of search term results, and you want to make sure that if you want to make sure there's kind of a kind of a pattern match between what people are putting into Google, what's on your website, and then kind of how people are taking action on it. If you're so it kind of helps inform you a little bit. Obviously, you have to pay for this information, but that people are searching for things in a certain way. It's kind of a patient-specific language. Then you're able to also kind of build out your pages with that patient-specific language in a way.
Okay. So if you're running ads, you'll have a certain budget. If you don't use it all the budget, does it carry over to the next month?
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second here. I'd say it's really
Oh,
important
okay.
though that before we jump to the budget, that we're
Diving ahead of
like
myself. I'm going ahead of myself here.
it's kind of related in a way though, right?
Yeah.
There is kind of a carryover between the analytics and the metrics and making sure that you're getting kind of the max out of your spend, right? Because if you're, you can tell what people are clicking on and what's leading to a conversion. Like I talked about earlier, it's getting a little trickier with browsers having kind of ad blocking, or they won't always kind of relay that information back to Google, but it does help you kind of make these data specific, data driven decisions that, if people are clicking on a term like plantar fasciitis, but not making appointments, and you're spending $400 or $500 a month on those clicks,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to focus on a campaign or a way of advertising that's a little bit different. Like maybe you're doing something a little bit more local, like, podiatrist, Richmond, Virginia, or something, as opposed to just generic keyword terms that you're spending a lot, but not getting the return on investment. But like you talked about, having some flexibility in the budget is also something you can kind of crank up and crank down when it comes to Google. Generally, I recommend people are kind of in the budget of, somewhere between $500 to $1,000 a month when you start it out, as you're kind of building things up. It's something that you can kind of have a monthly cap, trying to ensure that you don't overspend and making sure that, like I talked about, you are spending money on keywords or on clicks that are leading to patient appointments. But that's a good point you made, that the budget is something that can be kind of ratcheted up, ratcheted down, depending on how well you're doing, and maybe you're doing some different types of experimentation. If you're just, a solo practitioner in a small town, maybe $500 to $750 is enough for you, and you can kind of keep it there. But if you find success with certain keywords, or you want to expand your business into a new location or a new community, there's some good ways to kind of, branch out and increase that budget where it makes sense.
Yeah, because that's what I was going. I think that was the question I was more looking at. That if you are running ads and you're choosing the wrong words and it's not working for you, will Google reach out to you and say you're using the wrong words? This is what you should be doing, or this is why you need to work with somebody. Or does Google just go, "We don't care, we're just taking your money"?
Well, Google's going to give you kind of the dummy interface version where it's basically just give us money and we'll try to like get you stuff. Like it's not,
Yeah.
so you really want to work with someone who knows kind of the Google black box and how to get the best out of this system, because it is something that's rapidly changing. It can be really confusing if you get into kind of the pro dashboard of Google Ads, but that's the most effective way to get the best kind of bang for your buck and make sure that you're spending your budget wisely.
Okay. So, which then we move on to budgeting.
Yeah, yeah. So like we talked about the budget there, there's lots of things why it's important, right? Like I talked about that, whether it be the size of your practice, maybe it's a way to experiment. But like I said, generally people will start off in that $500 to $1,000 range, but it is nice because you can kind of dial it up and dial it down. One of the tricky things though with Google is that it doesn't necessarily allow you to say, I only want to spend, $1,000, over this month. You have to be able to kind of set the budgets and to kind of know which levers to crank and to kind of turn on and turn off to kind of spend that much money, because it's going to, every $500 is going to charge your credit card. So if you're, in a big city, and you're not careful the way you're utilizing your ads, it can be, you could put some budget limits, but you can't always kind of drill it down to the exact dollar amount. You can say $30 a day, but know that Google has some stipulations where they're allowed to spend, I think it's somewhere between 20 and 30% over budget. And that's just normal for Google, right? So like,
Oh,
they're,
okay. So they're allowed to do that. It's in the
it's in the
contracts.
terms and conditions of Google, right? So even though they say, I only want to spend this much per day, there's some flexibility there. And you have to know what that flexibility is, especially, like I said, if you're a big urban area, kind of you want to work with someone that knows that that's there, so you don't just get blown out in that first month. Obviously, the more money you put in, the more data you'll get, the better, if you're, the better data you'll have to make these decisions. But just know that you have to be a little bit careful those first few months.
So if you said my budget's 1,000 for the month, it could be 12 or 1,300.
It could be. So you got to be careful.
Okay. So would it ever be 2,000, 3,000? But they don't go nuts though.
I mean, as long as you're putting in those daily, or, if you're putting in some limits there, it can't go beyond a certain amount, but there is that kind of built-in buffer that Google has.
Okay. Anything else on budgeting we need to be aware of?
No, I think that's kind of the benefits, or the kind of the things to be aware of when you're utilizing Google search ads.
Okay. What's next?
I'd say one of the benefits as well, and I touched on it briefly on another topic, is that you can utilize location, right? So whether it be kind of a radius around a certain location, or if you're targeting specific zip codes where maybe you have your best patients, Google Ads allows you to kind of be very precise with this geographic targeting. Like I said, you don't have to, even if there's maybe some place right next to where your clinic's at, you don't actually want to show these ads there. You don't have to.
Okay.
You can target them, and like I said, with a radius or with zip codes or postal codes, as we say in Canada. But it definitely gives podiatrists, podiatry clinics are generally local businesses. Maybe you'll have someone that travels a few hundred miles to see, and that's great. But I would say 90 to 95% of people's practice, if not more, are these local patients. And by realizing that it can be very powerful from a local marketing perspective, you can really go after kind of your ideal patients locally and be very relevant to them. That's one of the things about interruptive advertising, or just kind of generic advertising you see in a magazine or on TV. Maybe it speaks to you, but if you live in Boston, Massachusetts, and you type Boston podiatrist and you get, a link that says, a podiatrist in a specific, neighborhood in Boston, open to see new patients, and you click on a link and you go to the website, and it seems like your local area. It seems like a reputable person that has reviews and testimonials from people kind of like you. it's going to be much more relatable as opposed to kind of a generic, more kind of broad marketing message that we see in a lot of more mainstream media outlets.
Yeah, and I've seen some people where they get this totally wrong, and I'll be Googling something, and it might be for the local area here in Cairns, and next thing the sponsored ad will be someone in Perth, the the other side of the country, and and that happens a lot. And I've seen a lot of podiatrists do this as well, where I've gone there searching for something, and I'm searching for it in this area in Queensland, and next thing I'm getting something for the other side of the country, and I've gone, you obviously didn't tick the right box.
No, exactly. I think that's a great example of kind of why the geo-targeting is super important. It's not only important just to to be relevant to people, but it's also, for example, if you own a podiatry clinic in Manhattan, Kansas, and you're targeting the entire US and you're wondering why, 99% of your clicks are coming from Manhattan, New York, but no conversions or no people are making appointments, you
Yeah.
know, I've seen that before where someone has left the geo-targeting wide open, and they're getting all this irrelevant clicks and irrelevant traffic because the people running the ads, it could be in London, the UK, and someone from London, Ontario is advertising, right? So you'll be surprised sometimes you'll see very non-relevant, not non-local ads sometimes show up for some of these things in Google search ads if you take a closer look at it.
Yeah, so I suppose if you get the targeting right, then you're not gonna be wasting money by going to the wrong places.
Exactly, and you're gonna get more of those patients coming your way instead of some frustrated New Yorkers, that are upset that you're trying to make them go all the way to Kansas to get, foot and ankle care.
Yeah, I'll be honest, whenever I see an ad that's in the wrong spot, I click on it
Just to punish them?
just to punish them. Yeah. If I see it and I say, "No, you should not be advertising here. This is the wrong spot," or from where I am, click. I'm gonna have a look, and I'll come out, and I might go, click, might have a second look.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. Get it right. So what's the fifth thing?
Last but not least is that these are really high intent potential patients and leads that are clicking on Google search ads. If you've constructed these campaigns in the correct fashion, like we talked about, they're local patients that are highly likely to make an appointment with you because they're typing these things into Google, right? They're looking for answers to a specific problem that they have, and if you're just advertising on terms like plantar fasciitis or podiatry, these are very general and non-specific terms that, you might even be bidding, if you do plantar fasciitis, you might be bidding against, bunion surgical instrumentation companies. Maybe it's Dr. Scholl's who probably has hundreds of thousands of dollars of budget. So you're just not really going to be showing up for these things. But if you have high relevant ads that are localized, when people type in things like podiatrist near me or foot doctor near me, there's not an unlimited amount of volume for these types of terms, but when people are searching for those things, they're highly likely to come see you, if they like what they see. So when people are likely to book, these are the kind of low funnel or patients kind of hot to book an appointment. So it's just not something that you have in kind of the normal old school marketing or kind of old school. I mean, people would have to, flip open the yellow pages or something and see maybe a podiatrist or something, but it's much more relevant and easier to make an appointment when it is something like Google and they're searching for something and you look like a very relevant person for them to come see. You're essentially kind of capturing these potential patients at a moment when they need your services the most. So that's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and it's funny that you just mentioned Yellow Pages, that because when you actually think of Yellow Pages and how Yellow Pages used to work, Google is pretty much telling everyone sort of think the same way. Like if you were looking for a podiatrist in Cairns, I'm not going to grab the Townsville directory.
Right.
You just wouldn't do it. Then if someone's looking for a podiatrist, if they are a high intent lead, they're looking for a podiatrist, which is why they went to the Yellow Pages back in the day. Then whoever spent the most had the bigger ad and went to the top. So it's pretty much the same concept of what you're doing with Google. So if people are a bit more old school, just try and think of how it used to work there. And it sort of applies the same way in the digital world.
No, absolutely. That's a good point. I think you're right there. when you saw that full color ad for somebody kind of in that podiatry section, or maybe you're looking for a landscape or something, right? And they have this amazing color ad there. You're not going to look at the little fine print there
No.
like, for the name, like, if there's, especially there's testimonials, oh, this is, 5-star, those kinds of things, it's going to stand out to people. So, these Google search ads are still very relevant. I would say, they leverage these benefits, of these ads for podiatry clinics. It helps you ensure that your efforts are efficient and effective. You're going to attract local patients who are ready to book appointments now. So I think it's really, really important that it is distinguished from other forms of advertising. And those are the top 5 reasons why you should consider Google search ads if you haven't already.
I have a last question for you before you wrap up.
Sure.
If somebody had $1,000,
Yep.
and they go, Jim, I've got $1,000 here, but I'm thinking of putting it on Facebook, what would you say to them?
I mean, if you're putting it on Facebook, maybe you're going after swift wart patients, or maybe you're trying to let people know about, services that people aren't searching for. But I would say that it's much more of a long, closing window to get those people.
Yeah.
Facebook and other types of advertising like that is more just kind of, keeping you top of mind, let you know you exist, and you're not going to get a very high return on investment. So
It's more of an interruption too, I expect.
yeah, exactly. People aren't looking for those things, right? It's nice that maybe that you're top of mind with them, but if you're really looking to add new patients to your practice with the kind of the highest, like I said, the highest ROI opportunity is still Google search ads these days. Because like I talked about, you're very relevant, you're local, and people are basically putting their hands up to say, I have this problem now, like, please help me. If you're kind of running the right campaigns.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Be no different. I don't think it would matter. I think most people, if they think about what was the last thing they searched for on Google, and did that thing that you were searching for actually ever pop up while you were searching on Facebook? And sometimes it does.
Yeah.
But I've seen ads that'll be on Facebook and it'll interrupt me and I go, oh, that's interesting. And I might click on it, but then I will then go to Google and search for more detail. So I do think Google ads, like you said, you've got people that have got a high intent of what they want, which is why they're searching, and which is why you need to be there.
Absolutely. It's just a total game changer. It's still, really tough to deal with for other forms of advertising.
Okay, Big Jim, you got anything else before we wrap up on this episode?
No, I think we're good for today, Tyson.
That's good. No, you've convinced me Google ads worth it.
I think you're already sold, so.
I was already sold, yeah. No, that's why I just thought I'd throw that Facebook thing at the end, because I know a few people that have put more into Facebook than they have in Google, and I'm like, yeah, I'd probably go the other way.
I agree.
Okay, Jim, I look forward to talking to you next week.
Sounds great, Tyson.
Okay, see ya.
Bye now.